Hello everyone, Shawn Carey with Migration Productions, and welcome to Exploring the Natural World. Today we're going to look at 10 items that every wildlife photographer should consider having in their arsenal. And for today's video, I'm actually going to bring back my friends Christopher Ciccone and Mike Milicia, who you've already met in previous videos, to talk about some of the items that they recommend as well. So, let's talk to Christopher and Mike. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, welcome to be back.
Good to see you. So, we're going to talk about items that we use as wildlife photographers, and we all specialize in bird photography. But we're going to talk about items that we use that are not a camera or a lens. So these are kind of specialty items in a way that each of us use. And I think for all of us, I think many of the items we all use. But I think it'll be kind of interesting to see what I have in mind, Christopher, what you have in mind, and the same thing for you, Mike. So, Mike, you first. What's the first item you want to share with people that they might not be thinking of and they might want to add to their arsenal?
Well, it's kind of a two-piecer here. One is a fairly common thing that a lot of people use, and that's this BlackRapid camera strap, kind of an over-the-shoulder sling type that really makes everything nice and secure. But the way these things come is they basically come with just a regular stud that you would screw, say, into either the bottom of your camera body if you're working with a wide-angle lens, or you could screw it into the lens foot if you have a big telephoto lens. But then that makes it very cumbersome to change lenses, because first of all, you have to make sure you get it nice and tight, and you got to unscrew it and screw it. And so the thing that I'm really sort of adding to this is this idea of a 1-inch Arca Swiss clamp. This particular one is made by Kirk. There are some knockoffs of it now. This is also an older version of the Kirk, so the newer ones look a little different. So what I do is, rather than constantly have to screw this into one camera body, the other camera body, and most of my lenses I'm using larger lenses with lens feet, so rather than have to screw them into the lens feet, I basically just screw the stud into the clamp itself. So now I've got a clamp where I can easily just move, say, if I have a bracket on the camera body, I can just mount one camera, mount another camera, take it off of, take the lens off easily. I can get it back and forth, and it's nice and secure and so forth. So that's my thing, is this 1-inch clamp. I can't take credit for the idea. I actually got the idea from Charles Glatzer originally, but I've passed it on to many, many people since then. And it really makes it, especially for people that, again, use the larger lenses with lens feet, it makes the BlackRapid way more useful and way more easy to use.
Yeah, Mike, you recommended that to me years ago. I have it on my BlackRapid strap. I use it all the time with my 100 to 400, with other lens combinations and body combinations. It works great. That's an excellent tip. And I'm sure for those people that are using it, they're thrilled to have that. And if you're not using it, you definitely want to take a look at that. Christopher, what's up for you? What's the first item you want to share?
First thing I want to talk about are blinds. So there are a couple different types. I use a couple different types in my photography. There's the kind of the well-known sort of pop-up blind. There are a bunch of different ones out there. I like the Tragopan blinds. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but they're really made for wildlife photography as opposed to it being just a less expensive hunting blind. They're roomy and comfortable. In addition to that, the other thing I use a lot is a throw-over sort of blind. So it's just basically a large, almost camouflage tarp. I think mine was a quick camo that I bought years and years ago. I'm not even sure if you can get quick camo anymore, but I know that Lenscoat has a bunch of them in different weights and sizes. So you can get a winter one or a spring one that's lighter. But the thing I use the most actually is I bought some camouflage mesh a couple of years ago, attached it to some strip magnets so that I can actually use it on my car. I use my car as a blind a lot for photography. And this just kind of goes over the window, and it gives me that extra layer of, being hidden for smaller sort of skittishier birds, that I really like a lot. And I think Shawn's gonna make sure that we have a photo here so that you can see actually how this works. So it was a very inexpensive camouflage mesh material, just some strip magnets I picked up from the hardware store, some double-sided tape, and actually eventually, if you have access to a sewing machine, I actually had my sister sew a seam into it, even just to make it a little bit more secure. But I use that quite a lot.
Yeah, Christopher, when you showed me that design that you made for your vehicle, I got to tell you, I was blown away. I was like, oh man, that is so ingenious, to the point where it's like, wow, I wonder why someone hasn't actually, you know, kind of mass produced something like that. And maybe we're giving away the secret now, and you know, you need to get royalties somewhere down the line. I'm not sure.
If it works for anybody else, and it keeps the birds from getting skittish or flying off, and you can get your shots.
Yeah, it works better than the way that I've designed with my camo thing on my car. I have clamps that I use in this sort of thing. It's a little more cumbersome. So I really like your idea, and I'm sure people will take a look at that B-roll that we're going to run and can get a very good idea of how you pull that off. So my item is this angle C finder, this right angle viewfinder. And if you look on my lens here, for those people that have never used one, basically you just take the little eyepiece off your body, and this goes right on here. And then if you've got it lower to the ground, and I'll roll some B-roll here, you can take a look at me using this. You can then, you know, look in here. So you can have it lower to the ground. You don't have to, you know, get yourself flat on the ground to use it. I also use it for a lot of macro photography as well. This item works really great. I really like it. I've actually had this longer than possibly any other photographic item that I own. This goes back to my film days. I've had it that long. I think it's around 200 bucks, something like that. We'll leave the link below for all the items that we have here that we can recommend. So that's my first, the Angle C Finder from Canon. I'm a Canon shooter. So, Mike, let's go to you. What's your second item?
My second item is something that to me is indispensable when shooting on a beach, and that is this Skimmer ground pod made by Naturescapes. And it gives me the ability to get nice and low, but also maintain a lot of flexibility in terms of being able to move around, being able to approach the birds closer and so forth and so on to get that nice low angle view. There are a couple other pieces to this. What I often combine it with is Wimberley makes this small little riser block. It gives you, it screws right onto there, it gives you a little more height. And the reason you want, one of the reasons you want that little more height is sometimes you're a little too low, but also I tend to use this with the Wimberley head, and it gives you a little more clearance between the bottom knob and the skimmer itself. So that's the other thing that's nice about it. So that's it. Again, I just like the idea that I can, you know, I'll approach a bird, I'll get sort of well away from its fear circle, and then I can get down, and what I'll do often is I'll just push this along in front of me as I'm crawling, and then when I get a little closer, then I'll lay down, and then I can just put it, you know, push it ahead and crawl, and push it ahead and crawl. If I need to move a few feet to the right or left, again, I can just push it and move. It just gives you a lot more mobility than you trying to use a tripod in a situation like that, and also allows you to get a lot lower.
Yeah, Mike, I got to tell you, it's interesting. You know, that's one item that I always associate with you because, you know, the three of us, right? The three of us know a lot of other, you know, people that are wildlife photographers who specialize in bird photography like we do. And I don't know that I see anyone use the skimmer as much as I see you use it. It's like identify that with you, you know, and the photos.
Never on the beach without it.
That's right. And a good point, because like when we've been down to Plymouth Beach and other locations, I mean, you're always using that thing. And, you know, we'll show a few of the photos here, give people an idea of what that angle looks like, that you're able to accomplish these really just incredible photos using something like that. And another great item to have in your arsenal if you don't already, particularly if you're going to do shorebird photography and you want to be low to the ground. Next up, Christopher, what's your next item?
So the next item for me is something that probably a lot of people have already, but if not, I really suggest you get one. Kind of hand in hand with my previous item where I shoot from my car a lot. A beanbag has been absolutely indispensable. You know, I've managed to take shots on rainy, kind of overcast days using that beanbag to put the big lens down over the window, and you know, gotten shots off at 1/50th or 1/60th of a second, because that beanbag can hold something nice and steady. There are a lot of them on the market now. Back when I first bought mine for the big lenses, one of the best ones was the Artie Morris's big lens bag, BLUBB. There are a lot more of them out there now that'll hold the big bags correctly, the big lenses rather correctly. You know, you can find them from Lenscoat. You can find them, you know, outdoor photography. There are a lot of different ones, but it is just absolutely indispensable. Either using it in your car, using it if you go into a blind. There are a number of blinds here around Massachusetts where I always bring the beanbag with me. And heck, even some of the beanbags now even have a plate where you can put a gimbal head or a head on it. So definitely indispensable for wildlife photography.
Yeah, beanbag's something I think that we all have. We all use it. Like you said, particularly some of the blinds here in Massachusetts that we have access to with the Massachusetts Audubon Society. And of course, you know, the three of us did our video on the birds of Tanzania. When we were in Tanzania, what were we shooting off of? I mean, we shot almost exclusively off of beanbags, right? Definitely something you want to have.
One sort of bonus tip I'll give relative to beanbags is one of the inconveniences is to travel with them full, because they can, if you fill one of these larger ones with rice, it's over 20 pounds. And then even if you could travel with it, which is kind of impractical, then you get there, you have to go to find a store, buy yourself 20 or 25 pounds worth of rice, and then figure out what to do with it afterwards. So what I sometimes do is I fill them, well, what I always do now, is I fill mine with buckwheat hulls. They're available at most local nurseries. They're used as mulch. It'll instead of a 20-pound plus beanbag, you'll end up with like 4 pounds. So it becomes much more practical to possibly even travel with it full.
Yeah, for a long time I did mine with black oil sunflower seed, thinking, okay, if I need to like loosen it or something like that, it's bird food. I can just toss some, but it's so incredibly heavy. The buckwheat shells.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be traveling with a full beanbag if you're using, like you say, Mike, you're using rice or sunflower seeds. So that's a great tip as well. I will say, however, just so everyone knows, when when we were in Tanzania, we didn't have to travel with any beanbags. They were supplied to us there in country. So just a note on that. Okay, so to my next item. And that is my travel stool. This is from REI. This is a very lightweight stool. And if anyone has seen me out in the field, whether it's here in Massachusetts or New England or anywhere in North America or traveling internationally, I always have this with me. I just find it invaluable, particularly when I want to be sitting low to the ground, drop my tripod down, kind of get a little bit lower to the ground. And the nice thing about this particular, it's very lightweight. And that's why I like this particular one from REI. There's a lot of tripod type stools out there that you can find from many different manufacturers. But again, this is the one that I have found that I really like. And again, I've traveled everywhere with it. And I can't imagine going somewhere and not having it. So again, if you're looking for a tripod stool, this is one that you want to take a look at. So that's my next item. Mike, what's your third and final item to share?
Well, continuing with the theme of beach photography, one of the big problems there is, of course, the sand can be insidious, and it gets on your lenses, it gets on your tripod, it gets between the threads, and when it's wet, all you can really do is leave it until it dries on. You don't really want to be trying to clean it off in that regard. But then when you're all finished and the sand has had a chance to dry, it's still very hard to get off. And you don't want to leave it around because then it could possibly get in your camera. So you want to make sure you get everything off. And so once it's all dry like that, the thing that I find indispensable more than any cloth or anything like that is a simple paintbrush. Just a standard soft 1-inch paintbrush. And it just does an amazing job of getting the sand off your stuff. So it's very, very low-tech solution to a very bad problem.
That's very practical advice, Mike. I love it. Yeah, the paintbrush. That's a good thing to have, absolutely. Christopher, what else do you have to share with us? Anything?
Last thing that I had was the, again, keeping with the theme of trying to keep a low profile, not interfering with the birds in their daily routines. One of the other things that you can use is a remote shutter release. So there are cabled ones, which are great if you're kind of watching something maybe from a blind where you really want to see something where it's flying in and hit the shutter without having your eye glued to the back of your camera. The other thing that I have here is also a wireless one. So you kind of plug this part into the camera, and then you have a little, IR wireless remote control. And there are a couple different styles. This one's an older one from Velo that I picked up, where you can set the camera up, get you focused on your spot, maybe on your perch or whatever, where you're hoping your bird's going to land. And then you can pull back and give that bird some space. And then just when he comes in or you see him coming in, you could just trip the shutter. And you have different options on most of these where you can have a delay if you need to. So if you're concerned about, movement, with the shutter and stuff like that, you can do a delay. But this works out really nicely. I don't use it a lot, but when you want it, man, it is a great thing to have.
That's the thing about some of these items, right? I mean, there's certain things, we don't use them all the time, but on those few occasions when you need it, boy, you really need it, right? So, all right, so my third item, This is number 9 on our list. We're going to have the 10th one coming up. But number 9 for me is actually something relatively new for me from Lenscoat. And I'm going to take it off my tripod here so you can see what this looks like. And this is relatively new. You know, most people have the leg wraps for their tripod, which can work quite well. And I used to have those. But I saw this on Lenscoat's website, or I saw it on a YouTube video. I forget exactly where I kind of ran into it recently. And I thought, you know, this looks like something that I would want to use. And it's so basic in its design, but it's just incredible the way it just does exactly what you want it to do. And you can just, you know, again, you'll just see me just take it, set it up on your legs of your tripod, and that's it. It's in place. You know, once you go to grab your tripod and you're hoisting up, that's it, you're good to go. And it works incredibly well. I've had it now for a few months, and I would certainly recommend this one. I'll leave the link below in the description. If you want to check that out, something I would definitely recommend. So that's the 3 items from each of us. We're going to give one tip on one item that all 3 of us own and use, and that's a beach rolly cart. And I got to say, I got to give credit where credit's due. This comes from Mike Milicia. Mike had recommended it to me, and I think Christopher, I don't even know how long ago now, more than a couple of years ago. And I picked one up right away because I do spend a lot of time photographing on beaches here in Massachusetts and in Florida and other locations. And it's really been invaluable. And Christopher, I know you picked up one. And boy, I tell you, it really works wonders. I've taken mine down to Florida many occasions. And again, we've used it up here in Massachusetts. And take a look at this photo here of a bunch of us on Plymouth Beach years ago. And Christopher, I think you actually took the shot, even though one of our friends, right? Even though one of our friends is using yours.
Standing in front of my cart,
right.
And I took the photo.
Right.
But,
so yeah, it works great. It's really a fantastic tool to have if you're going to be traveling
and hey,
on.
If you've got a bad back and you want to walk around with big lenses, so you got to go some distances, man, you want to have one of these. You know, I can't tell you how much pain this has saved my back over the years.
Yeah, I think about, again, just using it on Plymouth Beach or up on the North Shore, or even down at Daniel Webster, one of the Audubon sanctuaries here, you know, load my gear up and take it out. And it works great in sand, you know, even in snow. I've had it in areas where we've had snow, so the thing just works fabulously. So, Mike, that was a great suggestion years ago. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, the other thing I like about it is that you don't have to. You're much more likely to carry gear that you like. For example, I use that ground pod most of the time, but sometimes you come across a situation where you need a tripod, but you know, you might not decide to take both, or you might not decide to take an extra lens, but this way I can just load everything on there and have everything I could possibly use. Yeah. And not have to, you know, lug it all the whole way down the beach and back. So that's one.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's kind of how I think about it as well. Yeah, definitely. So there you have it, folks. There's 10 items from the 3 of us to you to consider for your photographic arsenal for wildlife and bird photography. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos here on Exploring the Natural World. And as always, please remember, help protect wildlife and help protect wild places. Cheers. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks, Shawn.
Thank you, Shawn. It's great to be back.